Welcome to the locker room. I am Captain Paul. That is Fajardo. How is it going there, Fajardo?
It's going. That's all I got. It's going.
Uh,
It's interesting. I've been paying attention to a lot of different sports, but yeah, I mean, it's just been wild. Like
yeah,
this off season for almost every league. You look at football, you look at basketball, and
yeah,
then obviously hockey. Like all crazy off season. Even in like soccer or football, however you want to call it, right?
yeah,
A lot of crazy things have been happening. The only league that's still kind of playing is the MLS league,
yeah,
but there's a lot of things. Obviously, the Women's World Cup is about to start, so yeah, I mean, there's so much going on,
yeah.
and so I'm just glad to be on the air and talking some hockey right now.
Absolutely. I think we're going to try to get this to be a weekly program, but we're both kind of busy. We got a lot of stuff going on in our own lives. But we'll try to get a weekly schedule if possible. And we have a lot of exciting news to talk about before we get completely into the show. If you haven't already, make sure to hit that like button, comment down below, and hit subscribe. Even with YouTube trying to copyright claim every single video, we're still going to try to give you as much content as possible. Now, let's just lead it off with Alex Galchenyuk.
Mm,
Is his career over? Let's look into what the Coyotes had in a statement. Coyotes terminate contract of Alex Galchenyuk. Uh, we are aware of the incident involving Alex Galchenyuk and strongly condemn this type of behavior. Once the club was made aware of the allegations, we immediately began the process of terminating his standard player's contract through the proper channels in conjunction with the National Hockey League. As a result, the Arizona Coyotes today have exercised the team's right to terminate the contract of Alex Galchenyuk due to a material breach of terms of his standard player's contract. The club will have no further comment at this time. And some people might be wondering, like, what did he do? Like, what happened?
hmm
What did he do to kind of get his contract terminated? Well, let's go down that rabbit hole.
yeah.
So, Galchenyuk, who signed with the team on opening day, this keeps popping up. Opening day of free agency on July 1st, has been arrested on July 9th on charges of private property, hit and run, disorderly conduct, failure to obey, resisting arrest, threatening, or intimidating, according to Scottsdale, Arizona Police Department. A spokesperson said the hit and run involved property damage only. There were no injuries, which is a good thing. And that's not a good look.
No, not at
That's
all.
not a good look. He was placed on unconditional waivers, and his contract has thus been terminated. He was a third overall pick. He was a third overall pick in the 2012 NHL entry draft, chosen by Montreal. Last year in 11 games, he had as many points as me or you did,
Yeah,
zero.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
okay. I made a video on it if you guys want the rundown exactly what happened, but I want your opinion, Fajardo. Can he bounce back from this? Is his career over? Just give me your thoughts.
Um, I'm gonna say this, right? Technically, overall, his career is at a standstill, right? Because
Right.
obviously they're gonna need more information. They want to see how the case goes. Because if it gets thrown away, which obviously I don't think, with all the accusations being made, I don't think it's gonna be thrown away by
Right.
any means. Um, I think that he's not gonna see a big payday ever again. And I think that he's going to be either in a team that is in a desolate area or in a really bad situation. That might be
Yeah.
the only reason that someone may look at him. But for the most part, his the highlight of his career is definitely over. There's nothing else at this point. It's it's sad because he I mean, yeah, 11 games he didn't really have, but I think he was getting close to, like, starting to figure some stuff out, which is why they he had that little run of 11 games or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think that with Phoenix he may have had a chance to really like get playing time, really find his game, and like really do something.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, and I just think he cut his own neck on this one. He cut it short.
I mean, listen, he played decent in the AHL last year. I think the talent is still there. He's 29 years old, though, at this point.
Mm-hmm.
And he's got to know better than to getting into physical confrontations and resisting arrest. Like, you just got to be better. You got to be far more intelligent. You know, your career is on the line. As for me, I don't know if he'll ever get another NHL shot unless, right, he goes overseas, plays in Europe, kind of lets the media forget about it for a bit, kind of redeems himself in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, I hate to say it at this point, he's shown flashes of brilliance, but he's never been able to really string it along altogether. Ever since he left Montreal, it's been a downward trend. And teams are going to want to go with their younger prospects than bring in like an older retread that's got off-ice issues,
Mm-hmm.
you know? It's just not really a good look for him because looking at what he did throughout his career, you know, he had a pretty solid NHL career thus far. I mean, his rookie year, he had 27 points in 48 games played. You know, he scored around 40, 50 points for most of his time during Montreal. But when Montreal traded him to Arizona when he was 23, turning 24, he had a decent season, 41 points. But ever since then, man, it's just been a downward trend.
Mm-hmm.
He hasn't scored more than 24 points in a season since then. Hasn't been able to really crack an NHL lineup. And yeah, last year he was on Colorado, but remember, Colorado had a lot of injury issues.
Yeah.
And a lot of the Colorado Eagles were playing up with the big club due to that. And he just couldn't really find his success. And Galchenyuk is just a very up and down player from when I've seen him play. And to be fair, I didn't see him play many Colorado Eagle games. I don't follow the AHL that heavily.
Mm-hmm.
And he was, you know, relatively decent at that level. But I don't know, man. It's just with this off-ice stuff and just looking at the trajectory of his career, I think it might do him some good just to go overseas and try to reestablish himself as a solid, viable option for maybe like a third or fourth line role. I mean, what is your thoughts?
No, definitely going overseas is a good option. If he ever hopes to even sniff the NHL, I think that he would definitely have to do a lot of work. He would definitely have to start from the bottom up, you know, and work his way up and show that he can be trusted. Obviously, try to right all his wrongs. But yeah, I mean, at 29, to do that, you're looking at like 35 to get one shot. And
Yeah.
I don't think that he has that type of, you know, life left in his career. I think that overseas is probably his best bet, and you know, maybe something else. Maybe you coach youth hockey or something, you know, or something
I mean, he
else.
could get involved like player development. There's other
Yeah.
players that have kind of gotten in that. I
Right.
mean, you know, I made the video today. I showed flashes of what he brings. He brings a lot of good finishing and offensive upside in moments. But yeah, he just hasn't been able to string it along. And speaking, I mean, we can change a little bit of gears here. Going from a player that kind of maybe had a lot of pressure on him being a third overall pick and not really living up to those expectations. What teams going into next season have the highest pressure on them? So we made a list, right?
Yeah, we have a list.
We have a list. We'll go down it. Let's start with someone we agreed on, the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yes,
We
sir.
have a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 teams. No, 9 teams actually, because we added one.
Yeah.
9 teams on this list out of the 32 in the NHL that have the most pressure on them. That's a cop out. Not going with top 5, absolutely, but you know, there's some teams that were interesting here. Let's go with the Carolina Hurricanes. This is a team that got kind of close, but then ended up getting swept in the Eastern Conference Finals.
Yeah.
And looking at their roster construction, they have, you know, a little bit over about $2.5 million in cap space. they look like they're fully buying in. Now, there was rumors of Tarasenko potentially going to Carolina. Then he fired his agent. So I don't know what exactly Tarasenko was going to do. Will he still go with the Hurricanes eventually? I don't know. But they brought in Michael Bunting. They brought in Dmitry Orlov. They have brought in some quality hockey players. I feel like this is the year they have to get over the top. Mm-hmm. They just have to.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely have to. They definitely have all that pressure because they've always been a top quality team, regardless of their lack of star power. Right? They've always been a competitive team. Their system works really well, but they always fall short. And it's always the teams that have some type of star power. And so it makes it very obvious that they don't have that. And it makes it very obvious that they're lacking in the scoring department. Their defense is amazing.
It is.
Right? It's definitely one of the top defenses in the league. Regardless of who they've brought in or let go, the system itself is just really good. For forwards and defensemen to help in the overall team defense. So, defensively they're not struggling. Offensively is where they're having the biggest problem. You look at some of the players that they have. Unfortunately, they had some injuries towards the end of the season that cost them some of their scoring. But even with those players, you look at what they were doing, and you're kind of just like, would it have propelled them over the edge? To go to the Stanley Cup or not, right? Yeah. So you look at the guys they bring in. I think they signed Brendan Lemieux as well. They brought him in. I think he's on there. Like they brought in some role players, but they had like.
Oh yeah, he's a healthy scratcher.
Yeah. They haven't really brought in like immense firepower. They secured the firepower that they have. Right, they brought him some good defensive talent that can also contribute on the offensive side. I mean, they had Brett Burns last year, and you saw what a difference that made for them. That he contributed a lot with their offense. He pushed. I'm surprised they didn't try to re-sign him. Maybe he just wanted a little bit more money or whatever the case may have been. But defensively they added some guys that can bring some offensive firepower. But in the front, you got Bunting. I think Teravainen is on his last season now, so you got some guys that have some things to prove. Actually, most of their forward line.
Yeah, that's actually what I was gonna mention. Right.
Yeah.
Look at these contracts. Aho, unrestricted free agent.
Mm-hmm.
Jarvis, restricted free agent, so they'll retain his rights.
Mm-hmm.
Natchez, restricted free agent, 24. Martinook, 2024. Nason, 2024. Like look at all this. Jack Drury, Teravainen.
Yep.
They're not going to have enough cap space to bring in back all these players. Mm-hmm. This is pretty much it for a lot of these players.
Yeah.
They're going to have to replace them with some younger, or maybe some younger, cheaper talent. Mm-hmm. But do you keep kicking the can with the same core that hasn't been able to get over the top? Now, I like the addition of Michael Bunting. I thought he was a quality hockey player. He played all 82 last year with Toronto.
Yeah.
Quality. Now, he has his own little head case issues. He needs to kind of stay disciplined. But, I like his game. I think maybe in this right combination, right chemistry, he could potentially be like a 30-goal scorer.
Yeah.
But even if he just stays around the 20s, that's still good secondary production. And then Dmitry Orlov, right, went for the Washington Capitals, the Bruins last year before the trade deadline acquisition to kind of get over the hump, and then they lost in the first round. Like Dmitry Orlov is a very good defenseman. He's what 5'11", but he plays like he's 6'4". He's physical,
yeah. Very physical.
He's got good offensive ability. Now at times he would get a little bit too offensive, but when Orlov is locked in, I mean, they're good. But how the Hurricanes are going to have to win is through scoring by committee. Because some Canes fans want to argue Aho and then Svech.
Well, that's something I want to point out. Right? Is like you look at their team and you look at all the forward lines and you're like, well, you have three lines that have 30-plus scorers, in all three spots, and you're like, how does this team not win? is because it's like they're all, like you said, complementary players. Like they're all kind of like, it's a support system. So like if the top line, or what you call their top line, gets shut down, the next line steps up, and that's a great formula. But at some point, you need a guy that can really, take control and say, hey, let's go, and like really carry that load a little bit more, and really have something in the tank. I mean, look at Florida and what they did, especially with Tkachuk, right?
Yeah.
He became that guy, and now he is that guy, right?
I
Like
mean, look at what Vegas did with Jack Eichel. Like the really good team, great team, but Jack Eichel in those moments rose to the occasion.
Yeah.
And do the Hurricanes have that player? I'm not sure. Now, Svechnikov got injured, so it's kind of unfair maybe to make that judgment. They're both kind of young, so maybe another year it can kind of help them get over the hump. But yeah, the pressure's on for them this season, and they brought back both their goaltenders, which I was kind of surprised. I was very surprised because they have a very good third goalie in that organization with Kochetkov. But, if they don't win it this year, they're going to take a little bit of a downward turn after this season because they're not going to be able to retain all this talent.
Yeah, I think if they don't win it this year, unfortunately for the head coach, I think he gets fired. They replace
you think Rob
him.
Brindamore gets fired?
I think if he doesn't bring something more this year, because he's led them all the way multiple times and it always falls short. And it's like, at what point do you give up? Like, he's a great coach, don't get me wrong, and he's like a player's coach, right? But at what level do you kind of just say, all right, you know what, maybe this isn't the way to go, maybe this isn't the guy.
I would argue, though, is it his fault or the GM's fault for not maximizing the talent?
I wouldn't be surprised if they both go.
I mean, that's a fair point. That is a fair point.
Because
I think Rob Brindamore is a fantastic head coach. I think he's maximizing the talent he's getting from these players.
Yeah, 100%.
I just don't know if they have that guy. Maybe Svechnikov proves completely wrong and absolutely tears it up. But, yeah, I mean, they definitely have a lot of pressure on them. So let's go into our next team. So we're going to go from Carolina. Let's go to Calgary. Because Calgary, last year was a train wreck.
Yeah.
They got 2.4 available in cap space. So Calgary having pressure on them this season, I would say it's more pressure for them to make the playoffs, right? I'm not thinking they're going to win it all, but they need to at least be a playoff team. Am I kind of right with that?
No, 100%. And there's added pressure because obviously one of the biggest things that was talked about at the end of last season and going into the playoffs all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals is a trade of Matthew Tkachuk for Huberdeau.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Big trade in the offseason. Both teams got quality players. And I'm not going to say that, Huberdeau didn't perform. He performed, but he didn't perform as great as he did the season before. He wasn't a 100-point scorer.
No. Like, listen, let's not sugarcoat it. He was massively unimpressive last season. He
was a regular player. Well, above average.
And now he's making $10.5 million.
Yep.
In no reasonable universe is a 55-point scorer making $10.5 million.
Yeah.
So you expect Huberdeau to take a step in the right direction, maybe hopefully be around 80-plus points. I think Huberdeau is a fantastic playmaker. I think he needs to take the shot a bit more because I think it becomes a little bit too predictable when he's going to shoot. It's going to be a little bit too predictable regarding his passing. Like he's going to not shoot. He's just going to pass it every time. So then it's just easier to read. Yep. And, looking at the center core, right, you got Lindholm, Backlund, and Kadri. They brought in Kadri from the Colorado Avalanche to kind of take them over the top, get them to the next step, give them that extra center depth. And he was a ghost at times during this season.
Yeah, but I will say, I think you and I said that we thought that they were being a little rich with him to begin with.
We were right
before the season started. We said it's a tall task. Yeah, he just performed really great, won a Stanley Cup, but his overall average is around 50 to 60 over the
Right.
past like 4 or 5 seasons. I think there was one season he got a little bit lower, 37 or something like that. But he wasn't the guy that was going to carry you, right?
No, that's true.
So
That's true.
why would you pay $7 million for him if that's not the intention? He's not a $7 million player. And I think that's where they mess up just a little bit. I think he's a $5 million,
Yeah.
$6 million player, maybe just a mil less, and six is pushing it. That's when he's
Yeah.
at his prime, like he's at peaking.
I mean,
right?
like,
And he
let's put
didn't
it-
do horrible either. So like that's the other catch. Is like he didn't play horrific last season. He just didn't score 87 points. Right?
I mean,
he
yeah,
scored
like-
50. What was it? 50 something? 50.
Yeah, 56. I mean, like,
Yeah.
I'm just going to quickly switch to the Kadri tab just to give people kind of perspective when they're watching this. I mean, if you're looking in Toronto, solid production, 40, 50, 39, 45 points, 60, 55, 40, 36. Like, he goes to Colorado, 36 first season, 32, and then he has a massive career high 87 points.
Yeah.
And you're playing with some fantastic superstar players and you won a cup.
Yeah.
Of course he's not going to sustain that.
Yeah.
It's just unreasonable. So
Yeah.
he goes to 56 points. When you look at his career, that's actually a pretty good year for him throughout his career, but it's unfortunate because you're paying him so much money, you're expecting more production, which I think as the player, yeah, take that money, take that market value.
Yeah.
But as an
yeah.
organization, you got to realize, like, yeah, we're paying kind of like a Stanley Cup champion bump. We're not paying
Yeah.
for a 70, 80-point score, which traditionally is a $7 million guy.
Right.
So I think he's probably around a $5 million forward. He's a good center when he has his head on right.
Yeah.
But
I'll
yeah,
tell you what,
they massively overpaid.
I think Tarasenko needs to get his agent because he definitely hit him with the sleight of hand and said, "Hey, listen, 87 points, just sign here." Got him.
Got him. But
So, yeah.
there's pieces here for them. I think they'll be back in contention. I think there's no way that I look at this offense. Are they the best in the NHL? No. But they should be around league
They should be
average. They
competitive.
should be good enough.
They should be competitive. I
Yeah.
mean, with the squad that they have, as long as everybody can stay healthy, which is always the big one, right? If everybody can stay healthy, they should be a contender. They should be at least in the playoffs, without a question. Their defense, it's solid. It's not ridiculously horrible. It's not ridiculously good. It's neither here nor there. It's kind of like right in the middle. Like it's good enough.
Yeah.
Forwards just got to do their jobs and bury the puck. Like you said, Huberdeau needs to pull the trigger a little bit more.
Yeah.
And maybe kind of do the Chuck and imitation and just say, you know what, I'm a carry and do more. And
Yeah.
that's what you're getting paid for. 10.5 mil, that's what you're getting paid for.
I mean, yeah, if he doesn't score at least 70, 80 points, it's a massive failure. Even then, that's kind of like underperforming for that contract, I should say. But before we go, before we go on to the next team, I should say, Markstrom's got to be better. Like, my man was awful at points last season. I'm not blaming just Markstrom, right? I don't think it was all on him. I think some of the defense was really bad when you watch the goals, but there was also a lot of soft goals. He's getting paid until 2026, $6 million per year. Daniel Vladar, I mean, he's under contract until 2025. They both did not great. They both were very like what? Both had the same save percentage at .892, and then both had virtually the same goals against average, with one at 2.92 and one in the other with 2.91. So they were virtually the same goaltender, and that can't happen. They have a young goalie in Dustin Wolf in the AHL that I think has a lot of upside. Maybe you do turn to him, but maybe the coaching change that happened in Calgary, maybe that'll help jumpstart things. But they need better goaltending this year if they want to make the playoffs.
They also drafted a goaltender who has some decent numbers. I mean, obviously he's young still. What's his name? Give me a second. I'm gonna butcher this, and I apologize. Yegor Yegorov.
Yeah, he's like 17. Holy crap.
Yeah, he's like really young, but I was looking at his recent history and whatnot. Good goals against average, some decent save percentages that if they put him in the right situations and let him develop properly, in like the next 2 to 3 years, that's something that they can look forward to. I mean, it's not going to help them now, but it looks like they have a plan for after Markstrom.
I mean, I think Dustin Wolf is that plan after Markstrom because like every single level he's been tremendous. This Igor kid, he's 17. I think he's probably like 6 years out.
Yeah.
Because remind, it'll still be like 22, 23.
Yeah.
So I think Dustin Wolf at 22. I mean, I do like what the Calgary's doing. They're obtaining goaltending talent. But I mean, for next year, Markstrom's got to be that guy.
Yeah, he needs to step his game up.
Absolutely.
Yeah, he can't just be an average goalie. You're supposed to be the starter. The starter, the like the franchise goalie for them right now. And if you're not producing and making the stops that you're supposed to be making, and I don't mean like my defense left me hanging and it's me against 3 guys and they score on me. No, that's not on you, obviously, right? It's the ones that you can save, right? The little chippers that you should be able to stop. Those are the ones that he needs to just. If he turns that around, I think Calgary would have made the playoffs without a problem.
Yeah, I think overall, hopefully a new culture change, new coach, all that. Hopefully it will kind of lead to better things. Speaking from a team that, let's just be honest, did not perform at all, going to a team that we had, there was some relatively good expectations with the Colorado Avalanche.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
They're currently $200,000 over the cap, but I think with Landeskog being out, that's going to open up quite a significant amount of money. I think it's around $6 or $7 million. Let's look into the Avs. They were ravaged last season with injuries. It was
injuries for them.
It was crazy. Like you had the Colorado Eagles playing up at the NHL level, and it
just
didn't
look at their second line.
Yeah.
I know Johansson wasn't part of that line, but look at their forwards. Like I think 5 of them. No, I'm sorry. You have about 3 guys that made like 80 game appearances. And then you had about 4 more that made 70. Everybody else is underneath that due to injuries. So, I mean, that should tell you a lot. When you don't have the same guys playing all the time, it makes it difficult to build something special. Makes it difficult to build that chemistry. You don't know who you're playing with. When injuries happen, that's what makes it really tough for a team to move forward. It's not the lack of talent sometimes, because you may get guys that are talented and they'll come in, but they may not mesh with the lines.
Yeah. I think last year, got to give Mulligan, they played pretty decent in the postseason. They ended up kind of losing eventually. But, Landeskog not being there for another year, that hurts. I think he's probably done for his career at this point. But you got Nathan McKinnon, Mikko Rantanen, Nichushkin, when he's healthy, has been fantastic for the Avalanche. I think you got some good offensive upside here. And the interesting player, the interesting addition here is like they brought in Miles Wood. I think he's a good depth player, right? Good third liner. The interesting player for me, though, is Jonathan Drouin. Now, there's some ties with McKinnon and Drouin back before in the NHL when they played internationally together. But can Jonathan Drouin turn around his career with the Avalanche? Because it just seems like wherever he goes, whether it was Tampa Bay, Montreal, any destination, it's not panned out well for him. Do you think Drouin can turn around with Colorado?
He better.
I mean, if you're playing with if he ever plays with Nathan McKinnon, just sit there and score, or just pass him the puck. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I think that this is definitely his opportunity. This is his last chance. I mean, he's 28. You're 28 and your contract is $825K. That means you're not making it, right? That means that you're subpar. And if I was him, especially because this is his contract year too.
He only signed a 1-year deal.
Right. So I would have a chip on my shoulder.
Absolutely.
I would be the one saying, you know what? All right, 1 year. That's all you want from me. Cool. I'm gonna go out here and I'm gonna show out, and I'm gonna make sure that my next contract at least has to be $1 million. At least, my
I mean,
guy. My
I mean,
guy.
Phillips Sedina at least made 1.1 mil.
Yeah. So,
So I mean, yeah, I agree. But like looking at this team, they got some pressure to perform again. I think last year they get kind of a mulligan due to all the injuries, but they still got good talent here on the back end. Devin Taves, McCarr, Gerard,
I
Byram.
mean, Ryan Johansson, that was a nice one.
That was a nice addition.
I like it. I like it.
When Johansson's engaged, he's good, and he's a
Yeah.
big center.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think there's a little bit of pressure. And then goaltending wise, Georgiev, who might get a little bit badly roasted for last year in the playoffs. I mean, let's just put things in perspective. The dude played 62 games last year, his first year as a full-time starter.
Yep.
And he performed really well.
Yeah. Look at his numbers. I mean, his numbers ain't lying. 2.3 goals, 2.53 goals against average, and a save percentage of .918. Yeah, 918. So, yeah, 40 wins, 16 losses. I mean, he proved that he can be a starter. That's what he did last year.
Yeah,
Right.
And I think that's what he believed for the longest time. But, I think good for him. So hopefully he can kind of take that next step and feel more confident in the next playoff run. But considering all the, I would say, adversity he was dealing in front of him when playing with AHL players, I thought he had a really good season. A little bit underrated in that regard. And I think we were both high on Georgiev when he was moved to Colorado.
Yeah, I still believe he's a pretty good stud, honestly, in that. And as I predicted, right? Didn't I tell you the more games he gets, the better he's gonna look, the better he's gonna perform. He just needed that consistent role of playing and starting that he was not getting with the New York Rangers. Obviously, he wasn't gonna start over Shesterkin, right? No. And that made his starts very inconsistent and far apart from each other.
Absolutely.
So now you see that he's actually a pretty good goalie that can start and be the main guy when it comes to an NHL team. And now let's, we have our goaltender, and now let's, perform in front of him. Let's get the rest of the team together. That would be my thought if I was in Colorado. Let's make sure that we perform in front of him.
To me, Colorado's at least got to get to the second or third round.
Yeah.
Next year.
At least.
So that's my pressure for them. And let's go into our next team. I keep forgetting they're in the East now.
Oh yeah.
They got 8.1 million cap space. They opened up a little bit more once Zadina's contract was terminated.
Yes.
But they've been wheeling and dealing with the Detroit Red Wings, Motor City.
Yep.
Bringing in Alex DeBrincat, a multiple 40-goal scorer, shows that they're fully in. Bringing in JT Compher, who played well, an expanded role for the Avalanche last season. They have Andrew Kopp. Like down the middle with Larkin, Compher, and Kopp. Really good depth. I like what I see there. And then on the wings, like you bring in DeBrincat with Larkin, who you signed to a long-term deal at $8.7 million until 2031. Yep. You now gave him a explosive scoring left winger. And you know what? Honestly, I would not be surprised if Larkin, scores around 90 points and DeBrincat hits that 40-goal plateau again, because those two together should be pretty damn dynamic.
Yeah.
And for a few years, we've kind of been talking about, like last year, I thought the Red Wings could be on the precipice of being a wild card team. They look like they're starting to make that jump, especially offensively. And if you are a Red Wings fan, you got to be excited. You're having a mixture of youth and some veterans come in. I mean, and DeBrincat's only 25.
Yeah.
He's 25 is a young 40-goal scorer that just wanted out of Ottawa. And then you look at the defense, like you got Moritz Seider. Seider's going to be a guy in Norris conversation for a very long time. Last year, a little bit of a down year, but you got some talent back there. Bringing in Gostisbehere. The only addition that I'm not super high on is Justin Hall. They have him slotted in as the second pairing. I don't think that's where he'll be, but I think Gostisbehere will be there. But you know what? Overall, forwards defense is pretty solid with Detroit. I think there's got to be pressure on them to make the playoffs this year, right?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I like two other additions that you didn't go over. The addition of Perron, David Perron from the St. Louis Blues. Adding him obviously gives you a leadership role, right?
Yeah.
You have someone who's been there, who's done it, right? Again, we hate using this term, but Stanley Cup,
Pedigree.
pedigree,
Yeah.
and all that stuff and whatnot. But I mean, he's one of those guys that's proven year in and year out. That he's good. He can perform under pressure. He's a dog. He's always gonna fight. He's always gonna bring it to the table, without a question. And then the other one that I really like was the Costin.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, because you and I talked about Costin, being picked up again or whatnot with Edmonton, was it?
Yeah.
Right. We were like, they're not going to be able to afford him or whatnot, or he's not gonna just sit there. He looked pretty decent throughout their playoff run.
He did, yeah. He did.
I think he showed that he has a little bit of spark, and I think that with this team, considering where it is and how they play, I think that he may get some more minutes, and I think that he'll have more to prove, and he may get a bigger shot, and I think that it's going to translate for them very well.
So, Pekka, I got to say, still so lost about what Sanko is doing, considering Tarasenko. And I think he's just waiting for the best opportunity at this point.
Yeah.
I think he's just kind of seeing what's out there. He's won a cup, so I'm assuming it depends on the personality too. But I'm assuming he's probably trying to either maximize his dollar value or find a right situation where he can raise the cup again, right?
Well, on that same note, though, he fired his agent. I get it, right?
That was so random, yeah.
It's super random, right?
Yeah.
But on that same ticket, though, it's the first time he's really been in free agency.
What's that?
First time he's been in free agency.
Yes.
Right? So he doesn't really know what to expect. I think he's really trying to understand what is his best choice, overall. Whether money, whether it's, finding the team that has the right stuff or whatnot.
Yeah.
I mean, don't be surprised if he stays in the East. Honestly, right now, it's anything can go. Anything can go. But he's in a situation right now where he can still produce. He's a big body, but there's still questions about his shoulder. There's still questions about whether he can still produce at that high level that he's known for. So it's a really awkward situation to be in your first free agency with all these questions.
Yeah, I mean, and I think actually I agree with DEG on this. If this was like Tarasenko and St. Louis in his prime, my man would be getting paid, but it's not that guy anymore. I think to be fair though, I think he could still be a top line, second line guy if he's healthy, but he's just dealt with shoulder issues. It's not even like his fault, right? It's not like he's not putting in work, being lazy. Mm-hmm. It's just injuries, and it kind of sucks to see, because you can see like flashes of him just being really good. So I'm hoping he has a good season. I'm hoping he goes to a good destination.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, but as for the Red Wings here, one thing little interesting note before we get off them, the goaltending situation is a little bit peculiar. So they have Ville Husso, who didn't play great last year, but the Red Wings weren't great. They have James Reimer, brought him in from San Jose. He did terrible in San Jose, but San Jose wasn't a good hockey club, right?
Yeah.
And then they bring in the legend, the myth, the man himself, Alex freaking Lyon, who played well. He went on a terrific run with the Florida Panthers. 15 games played, 2.89 goals against average, a 9-12 save percentage, 9-4 record. Alex Lyon played really good, and I would even say, like, in that Bruins series, he still showed a lot of explosiveness left to right. Like, laterally, he was really good. Yeah. I think Alex Lyon should be on this roster. I actually think at this point he's better than James Reimer, and I could argue maybe Ville Husso, but, I think Alex Lyon should be a backup at the NHL level, but I don't think they have a high-quality starter, and that's the one thing that might hold them back unless Husso can kind of turn back the clock just a little bit to back in St. Louis when he was absolutely dominant for that stretch. Mm-hmm. I'm just not too sure they have it, but like for me, the pressure when it comes to them is they have to make the postseason this year. Like Detroit fans, man, they're dedicated, but like got to give them something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, me personally, I give them the preseason and the first 10 games to figure out who their starter is going to be for the season. That's it. You have to figure it out at that point.
Pekka actually has an injury. Well, I would take Tarasenko over Kane. I don't know why Drury thinks Kane's more useful than Sanko. I think because of cap. Personally, I think it's because of cap because they should be able to get Kane cheaper. I don't know. I mean, if I'm going to take player now, I would probably take Tarasenko over Kane. I wouldn't even go over that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I don't know your opinion, but I would take Tarasenko right now over Kane.
Yeah, I definitely would take Tarasenko over Kane right now. Definitely. I just feel like he's recovered from his injuries and he's got a lot to put up. Where, as we all know, right, Kane is now going. He had the surgery already, or is he
he already had the surgery.
Yeah,
he's not going to be cleared
until at least January.
Yeah,
at earliest, right? So you're looking at half a season already missed if you sign him. So it's one of those, and then after that, right? He's already on the 35 plus, so you can hit him with a 35 plus contract.
Yeah, that's true.
You know, so it's one of those situations where maybe the cap is playing into it. Where Tarasenko, I think he's 33. So he's not even at that 35, range that it could affect him in the position of getting the lowest amount possible for a 35 plus player.
Yeah, Tarasenko is 31 actually.
Oh, look at that! He's still got
Yeah, he's got good hockey left in him if he can have healthy, and he had 50 points last year.
And he's a big body. Like people forget. Yeah, he's skilled, but he's a big guy.
Yeah, he's 6'1", 228. Guy's got some weight on him. And speaking of weight on them, let's go to the Edmonton Oilers. Because the weight of this franchise is solely on Connor McDavid's shoulders here. Now, they got 5.6 available in cap right now. Mm-hmm. Listen.
I mean,
the Oilers got to win it, man. Like this is no longer make the playoffs, go a few rounds. If they do not win the Stanley Cup, it's a failure.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of things that need to be considered here, by both the team and the player construction itself, right?
Yep.
McDavid has 3 more years left on his contract. Draisaitl has 2 more. Right, that's included in the season that's coming up. But like you said, they need to win. If they don't win, it's a bust. Anything but the cup is a bust for them right now.
Yeah,
that's the situation they find themselves. You have hands down the best player in the NHL right now. No question. We already went over the whole Eichel McDavid conversation,
which got more contentious in the comment section than I thought. But
that's just listen. That's
recency bias.
One on one, McDavid is the better player, right? Team player right now, Eichel's looking like the better team player, right? And that's the difference, right?
See, I mean.
It's not that McDavid's a bad team player, but if you look at the two, who's the better team player?
I get where you're coming from, and listen, I'm not a fan of either Vegas or the Oilers, right? In that regard, I'm very objective when it comes to this. Mm-hmm. But McDavid also gets his teammates paid. Ryan Nugent-Hopkins had 104 points, and he split with Draisaitl, McDavid at times. He gets these guys getting career, these point totals they have no right to getting. Because to me, this is no disrespect. I think he's a quality depth player. He's probably around a 60 to 70 point guy at most, right? Mm-hmm. Like Nugent Hopkins. But, I mean, I'm looking at this team. You got Evander Kane. You signed him for relatively cheap for what he was doing. Because remember, at San Jose, he was an all-star, continuous all-star. Yeah. He had that really nasty injury that happened where the wrist injury happened where he had missed significant time. Connor McDavid scored 153 points in 82 games. This is not NHL 23. This is real life. 64 goals, 89 assists. Looking at this offense, Nugent Hopkins had 104. Draisaitl had 128, and Draisaitl in his own right is a fantastic hockey player. Zach Hyman had 83 points in 79 games played. Offensively, they have everything they need, right? Mm-hmm. Now, depth-wise, is it electric in the third or fourth line? No, but you're not expecting the third or fourth line to be electric. Now, defensively...
Well, hold on. When you say that, though, don't forget the couple of sparks that they did have, they lost 2 of them.
Yeah,
Costin being one of them. So they did have spark there last season. So it isn't like they didn't have the electric. They had some nice pieces there. It's just they ran out of time with those pieces, right? Yeah. So now you're looking at like, okay, well, don't expect them to have those pieces.
Oh, and I forgot, McLeod, he's still not signed. He's still an RFA. That's right. So that some of that cap space will go to him. Mm-hmm. But I mean, looking at this team overall, it's not perfect. It's not pretty. I think Darnell Nurse is far overpaid for what he actually gives you at 9.25.
Yeah.
But you got Matthias Ekholm. I think he's a quality defender still. Evan Bouchard, young guy, 23. He's an RFA as well. And he showed some good offensive flashes last year. Now, if he can round out his game and can be a little bit better, too, in both zones, there is a good chance that maybe the Oilers do get to the Stanley Cup Finals. But to me, I want your opinion on this. It seems like with some of these teams, the biggest kryptonite is the goaltending situation. Like, can Stuart Skinner get you there? Last year, they were dragging him when he was playing terribly. I mean, Jack Campbell, you paid him $5 million. He was awful last year, but to be fair to him, in the postseason, he looked decent.
Yeah.
Is the goaltending good enough to get them that far? And I think if they don't win a Stanley Cup this year, or at least make a Stanley Cup final appearance, it's a failure.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's a failure if they don't win at all. With the goaltending, I mean, if this is a goaltending that they're choosing, right, you have to be realistic at that point and say, okay, well, if this is a goaltending we have, then we need to up our defensive game, right? Because their defense has been their biggest problem going into the playoffs, right? Not throughout the regular season because obviously they have enough points, they can score, but it's a different ball game when you get to the playoffs, right? Playing the same team, being able to lock teams down, all this, that's key, right? Yeah, Ekholm is going to be crucial to that whole plan, but I think you need at least one more, like, hey, this is a shut-down defenseman. And unfortunately, with their cap space, I don't think they can afford it.
Yeah, I mean, I'd actually agree. Like, Rick here brings up good points. And, guys, by the way, thank you for commenting in the or talking in the chat. Yep. We're noticing it. We're getting back to when you can. But I think Rick brings up a very good point. You can't win a cup by always trying to outscore the other team. 100%. You just can't. And like, I agree with you. It's like, if they could shave money somewhere, and this is why they think there was rumors of Ryan Nugent Hopkins being dealt, was so they could open up that $5 million for another defenseman. If they could bring another solid defensive D-man that's a decent puck mover, right? I'm not saying he's got to be Bobby Orr or something like that, but just a solid puck mover that's really good in his own end, the Oilers are looking like a far better team. Mm-hmm. And goaltending, I think Stuart Skinner's young. He's 24. He looked really good. 50 games last season, 2.75 goals against average, a .913 save percentage. They brought in Jack Campbell expecting him to be the number one, but he was so bad last year they just couldn't go with him. Maybe Jack Campbell has a bounce back. That's a possibility. Maybe Stuart Skinner takes a next step in his development. That's a possibility. But there's too many what ifs for a team that really needs to win a cup. You know what I mean?
Yep. And for Edmonton, they also have 3 explosive lines. I would feel a little more comfortable if they had a 4th grind your life away line.
I agree.
That's just gonna pound the other team's defense and soften them up for the other 3 lines. If they would have that, even that would be tremendous for them.
Yeah.
But like you said, with the current players that they have, I mean, that they eat up a lot of cap space. A lot of cap space. So it makes it really difficult to build a team when you're paying, a set number of players all your money.
And I think it's got to be noted, and I'm not saying he's leaving, Oilers fans, but McDavid's contract's up at 2026. And he's making 12.5 now. Mm-hmm. My man just scored 153 points. So
he's worth the 12.5.
So
I'm not going to sit here and lie to you. He's worth that.
I would argue Draisaitl 8.5 is underrated for 128 points.
No, Draisaitl should be Draisaitl easily if Tavares is getting fucking 10 mil, Draisaitl is a 10 mil player easy. Easy.
So that's not to knock Tavares. I like Tavares.
I do like Tavares too, but let's be honest. Who would you take right now?
Yeah,
Draisaitl or
Draisaitl.
Tavares?
Draisaitl.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah,
Who's getting 10 mil right now?
I get you.
Tavares.
I get you. I
Right?
get you. Listen. I'm trying to run for office here. You know?
It's tough. It's tough. I feel bad for Edmonton fans because you have the pieces, and it just can't, it just doesn't come together. It's like a letdown every year. We have the best guy. He just he's up there 153 points, and then you lose. Like, come on. That hurts the soul. That hurts the soul. I don't care if you're a fan of the team, a fan of McDavid or not. That hurts the soul.
You know what soul's always hurting? Their team left them high and dry, went to Dallas, and let's talk about the Minnesota Wild. They got their franchise back. 8.2 available right now in cap space. Some RFAs, I think, still on this team. Yes, there is. There is still a couple, like an RFA, a couple RFAs here. Well, the Minnesota Wild, man, they're another team that's up against the clock as well, right? And it's not like, Kaprizov, 2026, he's making $9 million per year. They have a couple more years left to him, but Hartman, last year, Zuccarello, last year. Look, I mean, Marcus Foligno, who's kind of not as good as he was at one point last year. And I don't know, man. These Minnesota Wild, they got to make a good playoff run. Yeah. They do, because it just seems like time and time again when it comes to Minnesota Wild, they just miss the playoffs or they underperform when they finally reach the playoffs.
Yeah.
So for me, with the pressure, it's like their pressure's got to be making it past the first round, right?
Yeah, 100%. With the, first of all, some of your talent's aging. You're wasting some good years on some of the guys that you do have long term, and you're it's not even that you're falling short. Sometimes you're not even getting to the show.
Yeah,
you're getting to the front door and falling, and they close the door in your face, right? And if you get inside the door, you're like, oh man, I forgot my wallet, and you walk back out, and that's it, the door's closed.
Yeah,
that's literally what's been happening to them, year in and year out. So it's a shame because I mean, let's face some facts, right? Matt Zuccarello, right? Obviously, I love Zuccarello, great players, and when he was with the Rangers, but I think he's a better player with the Wild. Like, he really found like his groove and everything he needs.
Yeah, with
the Wild. So it's almost like you're wasting the last bits of Zuccarello if you don't make it or do something this year, right? And then you look at some of the other players, right? Like you said, Hartman, last year of his contract, he's in his prime, 28, right? How many points did he have last season?
Yeah, 37 and 59 games played, so not bad.
So it's not bad. It's not bad, right? But
he'll see a bit of a bump, though. He'll go from probably 1.7 to maybe around 2.5.
Right. He's going to get a little bit of a bump, but when a player like that gets a bump, then that means someone else is out the door, or he's out the door to get that bump.
Yeah, and I think for me, they got some decent pieces on the back end, right?
Yep.
Dumba's gone, right?
Yep.
And I actually think that's a addition by subtraction, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're better off going young. And I think they're solid enough offensively to keep in games and be around maybe league average. Defensively, I think, you got some quality players, Spurgeon, Middleton, Brodin, Faber. Like, you got some quality defenders.
Mm-hmm.
And then goaltending, right? With Marc-Andre Fleury, he was expected to be the number one last year, right?
Yeah, I don't. Listen,
He
I like Fleury, but
no. This ain't knocking Fleury. I love Fleury. But
I don't think he's that guy.
Philip Gustafson came from the Ottawa Senators, and he was in Vezina discussion because in 39 games played, he had a 2.1 goals against average, 2.10 goals against average, a 931 save percentage, and a 22-9 record.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Marc-Andre Fleury played more games, but isn't this like the perfect situation? He's an RFA currently. They're going to probably sign him. They're going to have to. But that's the perfect situation for Marc-Andre Fleury. Have some young buck taking a lot more games. I think Fleury should have been rested far more than he was last year, and just let him play spot starts.
Mm-hmm.
So then you have a quality, like an elite level backup with an extremely good starter.
Yep.
You know? The one thing I didn't like, if I'm going to mention the Wild, I didn't like how they switched from Gustafsson to Fleury in the playoffs. I thought that threw them off. You got to just go with one guy and that's it. But I mean, for me, if the Wild don't get out of the first round, it's a failure. There's a lot of pressure on them. They got to show something. They got to show up in the playoffs.
And I don't think it's just the players on this one, right? I think it's the coaching staff, because like you said, right? I don't think anybody really agreed with that move of, you know, changing Gustafsson for Fleury. I think that it's really the coaching staff hit the panic button a little too soon.
Yeah.
And if your coaches and your management is hitting the panic button before the players even understand what's going on, then you're never going to make it. So,
No.
I mean, not only for the players is this like a very important year, but I think for the coaching staff themselves, I think this is make or break. I think if they fail to make the playoffs, immediate firing.
Yeah.
If they get first rounded, immediate firing. If they get to the second round, you may consider it, but yeah, they need to prove something this year.
So I'm actually going to save this for later, Rick. I'm actually going to favor this because I actually have an interesting proposition how to fix the Oilers in that regard, which might sound crazy, but stay tuned. I'm not ignoring you. I just want to kind of stay on topic here. So we're gonna go back to that later on. So Minnesota, they got to get out of the first round. Let's talk about a team that, you know, they lost to the Hudson River better.
I knew it was coming.
You know, Hudson River, right down there in New York, you know. I go up and down the Hudson River when I'm working on tugboats transporting. And you know what? The New York Rangers delivered a sad performance in that Game 7, but hey, they went to Game 7.
Yeah,
It went further than mine. I mean,
damn. I wasn't throwing your team under the bus. Here,
I was.
bro.
I don't give a shit. Still petty. Still mad.
Let's go back up in the chat though. There was some conversations, some questions about this particular team and some of the players on there. So we may want to highlight that as we get into the discussion of them.
Oh, right here.
No, further up. I think it was.
Oh, this Tarasenko.
No, even further up when they were talking about Goudreau. Goudreau being an expensive fourth liner.
Oh, Laffy Taffy. Okay, yeah, here we go.
Yeah.
Let me just mark these like this.
Yeah, we'll get into those in a minute, but let's just look at the overall of the team. What was expected, what happened, and what is to be expected. Right. So last year,
I'll let you cook since you're the Rangers fan.
All right. So obviously last year was a big year for the Rangers. Well, supposed to be a big year for the Rangers. They came into the season highly looked at as one of the top teams to win it all. They had young talent, a good mix of young talent, veteran talent that had performed, had overperformed the previous year in the playoffs and went all the way to the Eastern Stanley Cup Finals. Obviously, they lost to Tampa Bay. And then last year, it took them a little bit to find themselves, about a good quarter of the season. I think it was around November when they finally got into stride. And then, you know, they made a pretty good season out of the rest of it. They got into the playoffs. They played the New Jersey Devils, and they weren't ready for that. Some of the things that happened as they got close to that time, they made two key acquisitions, which was Tarasenko and Kane. Tarasenko, I think, was a good fit. I think that he was finding chemistry with the boys. Kane came to the Rangers, and he was not fully healthy. And I think that him not being fully healthy, trying to get into the mix, it just wasn't. It wasn't meant to be. It was one of those things that completely threw the entire team off. Right. The construction of the team is still pretty much in their prime. I mean, currently outside of Blake Wheeler, everybody's kind of like getting to their mid-20s, to their to the beginning of their 30s. Their defensive core is definitely a core that has a lot of potential, but they seem to be lacking a few things, and I think that what they're lacking is instruction, because it isn't a lack of talent. They have the talent. The instructions are bad. They just don't know how to cover the middle. Period.
But I think that will change under Peter Laviolette.
Which
It's going to.
Which, like you and I had the conversation, right? First coach to ever coach the Islanders and the Rangers. And jokingly, right, Paul and I have said, if you ever combined the New York Rangers and the New York Islanders, you'd have an elite team, a Stanley Cup winner. So I'm kind of hoping that this is true.
I think when it kind of comes down to it with Laviolette, he's going to be a big addition here.
Yeah.
Because the talent's there. It always has been there. Now, you guys got the Boston Bruins draft pick, Ryan Lindgren, and I liked him when I had him on my team. But he prospered over here in New York with Adam Fox. They're a good tandem.
Well, they were teammates when they were like in high school and everything. I know their coach.
Don't bring back the sad memories of me letting away a good defenseman. But no, but like all jokes aside, like they're quality players, and I think Laviolette should bring the best out of them. Personally, I think the way he structures his team, they might see a little bit of a downtick in offense, but I think defensively they'll become far more structured. Because when I look at a Keandre Miller and Trouba pairing, just a bunch of physical defensemen, just chef's kiss, just destroying the other team. And Keandre Miller's got a nice offensive side of his game. And it looked really. He had his best offensive year yet with 43 points, and he looked really good. And he's looked better year after year after year. And then you bring in another addition of Eric Gustafsson, who, he had 40-plus points on the back end, and maybe he pairs with Schneider, or maybe the Rangers make another move to get maybe a depth guy, maybe someone a little bit more experienced. But I feel like you could probably hide Schneider, and hopefully he develops throughout the season. But when I'm looking at the Rangers right here, the pressure for me, that they got to come out of the Eastern Conference. Like, this is the pressure. Because they have enough talent on this roster to come out of the East. They do. Last performance in Game 7 was kind of pitiful. I don't think I'm going to negate that. I think the addition of Blake Wheeler for $800,000 for the production that he can give you is just a steal. And, the only situation that's kind of in flux right now is Alexis Lafreniere.
Yep.
Like, he's not signed. He's an RFA.
Right.
But to be fair, the kid line, quote unquote, Lafreniere, Hedl, and Kaku, like they looked decent last year. They improved from the year prior.
Yeah, throughout the season they look decent, but if you look at the playoffs, they disappeared. They literally
they did.
They faded. They faded, and that may be just I don't know. That one is one of those that boggle the mind, right? But then you look at someone like Goudreau. I know that it's been mentioned on in the chat here a couple of times that he's expensive. He's obviously close to $4 million, fourth liner. I think he was playing fourth line because that's what they needed, right?
Yeah.
I think with the additions that they've made of Bonino, Pitlick, I think that now he's on the third line. Now he's, hopefully he'll be worth that 3.65.
Yeah, he should definitely be, you should definitely see a little bit more of an uptick. And I think for me personally, man, it's I'm expecting a little bit more from some of these younger guys, and they'll take that next step. Because listen, Goudreau's getting a little bit too expensive for a fourth liner. I don't think that's crazy, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
I do think it's a little bit too early to give up on Lafreniere.
Yep.
I think they're just young. They got to learn at the NHL level, and it's got to go from there. And another thing, actually, I'll mention, I love the addition of Jonathan Quick. I made a video about it. Rick kind of mentioned it here.
Yep.
I think Quick still has good hockey left in him, but he can't be a number one anymore.
No, definitely not number one.
Yeah, like you got Shesterkin in there, who's still going to probably play like 55 plus. Just give Quick some spot starts, and I think he'll be better than Halak. Right?
Yeah. Personally, I think with the forward group that they have, the real focus is going to be on about 2 or 3 young players I think Kaku's going to be under a microscope. Laffy Taffy's going to be under a microscope. Even Hito is going to be under the microscope. Hito's been, improving every year, but I think that this has to be. We expected a breakout year last year, and he did very well. But I think that they're expecting more. And with all three of those forwards, according to the depth chart here, it looks like at least Kako is moving up to a different line. Laffy, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets juggled between the second and third line, kind of just like to spice it up and see what actually meshes. But I think that they're the ones you have to really focus on, because not only are they going to be crucial to this season, they're going to be keys to the future if they remain New York Rangers.
Exactly. I agree with you there. So, we talked about the Rangers.
Yep.
With the beautiful city, right? Well, maybe beautiful to some people, definitely not to me.
Oh, here we go.
No, but all jokes aside, let's go to a place with let's go to Ottawa. I didn't have a good transition for it. Fuck it. I'll admit that. I didn't have a good transition for it. We'll just go with it. They have $5 million available in cap space.
Yeah.
And we went into last year, and I'm not gonna run from it. I was like, man, the Ottawa, they could be top 3 in the Atlantic. They could do it.
We hands down said they won the offseason.
They did.
They won the offseason. And then failed at life. It's just like, what?
And to be fair, some injuries happened, but even that, it was poor. It was poor.
Yeah. It was bad because their stars were stars.
Yeah.
Right? Their stars showed up. So it wasn't like their stars didn't show up or whatever. No, their stars showed up. The rest of the team didn't show up.
Stützle played fantastic. 78 games played, 90 points. Brady Tkachuk had a great season, 83 points in 82 games. Giroux had 79 and 82. Mm-hmm. And, Joshua Norris, I think in a healthy season, he'll be fine. Batherson did well.
Yeah.
Kubalik, 45 and 81, not terrible. I think this team has a lot of good ingredients. Now, it was a bit surprising they traded DeBrincat due to just getting him the offseason prior.
Stealing him.
Yeah.
Robbing at gunpoint. Robbing at gunpoint is pretty much what we said.
But the trade they got far better value for DeBrincat than Chicago did.
Yeah.
So that's something you could look at. But for me, Ottawa's got to at least be in a wild card position or just outside of it. These Ottawa Senator fans, they're passionate. They deal with a lot of BS, whether it be with the stadium issues or just the ownership, yada, yada, yada. But looking at the defense, you got Shabbat, you got Chychrun, Sanderson, Zub, Branderson, Travis Hamonic. When he's healthy, he's effective. They brought in Corpusello, who looked really good for the Kings in the playoffs. Honestly, they have some ingredients where they should definitely be in a wild card fight. They really should. Now, I don't know if they have enough horses in their third and fourth line, but I think defensively and with their goaltending, they should be far better, right?
I definitely agree. I feel like it's one of those things where they just have to put everything in the right places. Like they have the talent, they have the grit. They just need to figure out how to put it together. Their defense could use a little bit of work. That's where they're kind of just like, a little bit average or under average.
I'd say about average because you brought in Chychrun. I like Chychrun a lot.
Yeah,
I think he slots a guy down.
Yeah, I think they're one piece away on the defensive side.
Yeah, I agree with that.
And then forward wise, right? Yeah. I would say altogether you have 2 super solid lines and then 2 what is this kind of lines.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that's where, what they're lacking is what Carolina has. Right? A lot of those
That's actually
players,
a good point. That's a good point.
Right? They have all they're missing are the third and fourth line of Carolina, like those depth guys that are willing to grind it out for that 1 point, that 2 points. And if they would just even if it's just one consistent line that can just grind it out for them, I think they'd be fine. But they have a lot to prove this year, and I think that the pressure's on for them. They should have been contenders last year. They failed at the season. So here we are again talking about them, and I think that they need to put the pressure on the players, the coaching staff to produce a quality team and make the playoffs this year.
Absolutely. No, I agree with that. I think that they need to be in a wild card hunt and they need to get into a wild card spot. There should be pressure on them, rightfully, to make the playoffs this year because last year that was just inexcusable. So let's get into the last team here, the Toronto Maple Leafs, that is currently $8.8 million over the cap.
Jeez.
And even with the cap space of the LTIR candidates, they're still over 3. I don't know what's going to go on here. So let's just... Someone's moving. But you know what? They said, bet it all on black. We're just going to go with Tyler Bertuzzi. We'll give him a 1-year deal for $5.5 million. You know what, Max Domi? We want you too. 1 year, $3 million. Give us all your debt. Let's just give us every single player. They brought in Ryan Reeves. The only guy they signed to a multi-year deal was Ryan Reeves for $1.35 million.
My man
listen,
right there.
Listen, Tyler Bertuzzi, I liked him in Boston. I was hoping they'd re-sign him. I'm surprised they didn't sign him for a 1 year, $5.5 bridge deal. That's a whole different conversation.
Okay.
But Bertuzzi, Matthews, and Marner, I think Bertuzzi brings them a little extra of that grit and nastiness that they need. Max Domi with Tavares and Nylander, like these lines might not be how it exactly shapes out, but just kind of bring in Domi and Bertuzzi. I like just from a personality standpoint, giving this team a little bit more cojones.
Yeah.
Yarncrook, Kampf, and Lafferty. I think what can we say about the Leafs at this point, right?
Okay, wait, hold on. Right before let's make sure we stick with the forwards right now. All right, I'm gonna ask you this one question, right, and I'll ask everybody who's watching, right? Which player? Oh, Rick, you're reading my mind. We're right here. Who would you trade to even out this squad and make it go? Who would you trade, Paul?
The only guy you could trade would be Nylander.
Yeah.
That's the only guy you could trade. Like, you can't trade Matthews, right? And you can't trade Marner.
Well, I'm not saying they're going to.
And no one's going to take Tavares' contract.
Listen. First of all, I'm not gonna sit here and say that they're not thinking about the Matthews trade out. Right? You got to think about it because I believe there was a lot of things going on this offseason where he was saying he may not re-sign. And if that's the possibility that they're faced with going into the season, knowing that he's not going to sign, maybe you trade him for someone who is of high quality, or maybe 2 guys, 3 guys, right? Because he's worth 2 or 3 guys easily, right? That can bring you quality across your whole lineup.
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. If he's not going to re-sign, trade him while you can, and you would get the most value out of him. The problem is this. The Leafs aren't going to do that.
Of course.
They're not going to do that because they want to try to see if they can get over the hump and win the cup. Now, listen, Tavares, I don't think Tavares is as bad as people think he is. Is he an $11 million player? No, he's not. But at this point, you got him for the Islanders, a longtime captain. He was successful there. But he's not going to move because I think it's a no movement cost he has in his deal.
Correct.
So you can't move him. Marner, you can't move him. Matthews, I mean, you can move him, but will they really do that? The only guy that you could possibly trade would be William Nylander because he's at $6.9 million. Someone could eat that contract. Someone could take that whole contract and get value back for him.
I think Nylander also has a no-move contract. Let me just double-check on this.
I thought that didn't kick. That actually might have just kicked in.
That's what I'm saying. I think you and I were talking about this before, and I think it kicked in July 1st this year. I think this is when he could actually hand in a 10-team list of where he would be okay going to. I'd be curious to see what teams he would want to go to. But let me see. Yeah, I think it started this year, the no-move contract.
Yeah, I think July 1st, if I read it. I'd have to find it. But, I think even, with a 10-team, you give him a 10. I'd be like, yo, give me your 10-team. And we'll see if we can make it work. Because you need to get some value back.
100%.
But, to me, the Leafs are just the Leafs right now. They're the same thing. I like the additions. I do. I like Bertuzzi and I like Domi. I think that's a great addition. I think Ryan Reeves, the only thing I knock on that is you gave him a multi-year deal. He's already 36. You've already seen him slow up a bit. This reminds me a bit of the Wayne Simmons situation when they brought Wayne Simmons in. He wasn't like Philadelphia Flyer Simmons. He was like washed at that point. Now, I don't think Ryan Reeves is completely washed. I think he can still be effective in a fourth line role.
I think he's the grit. He's the grit that they're looking for, or they felt that they were missing. That's all he's an inspirational player, right? He brings a lot of life with him, and he's one of those guys that's willing to fight for your team.
Yeah, I mean, no, I love having a guy like Ryan Reeves, but he's 36. I'm saying right for this year he'll probably be fine, but the next couple, you know what I mean? Like the multiple year deal was a little bit peculiar in that aspect. But and defensively, I mean, you got Morgan Riley, TJ Brody, McCabe, Klingberg. They brought in Klingberg. You know, and Klingberg can be kind of suspect defensively, very good offensively. Giordano at $800,000 per year, very good deal. He's still effective even at 39. And Lindgren, you're hoping he takes the next step. Defensively, I think they're a piece away from being a cup contender, in my opinion. I think they need an actual true number one. I don't think Morgan Riley's that guy. I think he's more of a two masquerading as a one. And goaltending, like Samsonov is a restricted free agent. Matt Murray, and we both hated that deal when they signed it last year.
We did.
Matt Murray. It was so dumb. Like, why would you give Matt Murray a 2-year deal? But that's, you know, Dubas is no longer there, so it is what it is. I think, frankly, you might see a situation either maybe they buy Matt Murray out, maybe they try to find a trade partner where they send a draft pick with Matt Murray to make that deal happen. But I think goaltending, would you turn the keys to the kingdom to Wall if you're not going to bring Samsonov back?
I'll tell you the truth. I would highly consider it. I think Wall played phenomenal in his playoff appearances. I think that he was probably the best player on the ice for them when they lost. I think that I
agree.
He really captivated the audience with his play style. Like you noticed who he was. You had no clue who he was before he started playing, but when he started playing and he started making his saves, you said, "Wow, who is this guy?" You know, like he has that. And so that's really hard to do from a goaltender's perspective, right? Not all goaltenders are going to grasp your eye that way, but he did it. And I think that there's a lot more, it's going to sound like an old Hasbro line, but there's more there than meets the eye.
I mean, he in 7 games last year, 2.16 goals against average, 932 saves, 6-1 record. This obviously is in playoffs as well. But Joseph Wall did good at pretty much all these levels. I think why not? I mean, This is when goalies start hitting their prime as their mid-20s, right?
Yeah.
Might as well give him a shot, see how it kind of pans out. I think Joseph Wall can be a quality goaltender for him.
Yeah.
I really do. I watched him in Boston College. He was really good there. And it looked like he started coming into his own last year with the Marlies. So why not give him a shot? You know what I mean? Like, what does it hurt at this point, in my opinion? Like, just bring him up the NHL, see how it pans out. But, I mean, for me, the pressure on them is to go make a Stanley Cup final appearance. But I'll fully admit, I like some of the additions. I'm not sure if they're deep enough yet, though. I'm not sure, man. I'm not I think they're great additions. I'm just not sure if they're good enough defensively in the goaltending situation. I mean, you're going to have to re-sign Samsonov. You're going to have to open up cap somehow. I don't know. But, I mean, for the additions they've made, I liked them. But, I mean, any other final thoughts before we kind of switch topics?
No, I think we said all we can about Toronto. I think the obvious choice for them at this point is even if you sell off, and this is the only reason why I hesitate to sell off Nylander, is because even if you sell him off, you're still over the cap.
Yeah.
So that's why you look at some of the other ones, like maybe Austin Matthews, who may not want to come back to this team. Because if he doesn't want to come back to this team, that means that the negativity is already there at the beginning of the season. And if that's the case, that's not going to carry your team anywhere when he's your leader.
Yeah. That's a fair point. I mean, so let's I'm trying to see what we can do here. Let's look at free agents here. All right. So we'll kind of round out the last. So we've been going for almost an hour 20. Last section of the show. Let's share this tab instead there, please.
Yep.
So Tony DeAngelo got waived today, right? So he's not gonna be. They're trying to terminate his contract. That's a whole different thing. I'm gonna make a video on that later tonight. But let's what should we do? We'll do points. We'll rank it by points.
We'll rank it by points, and we'll do position.
Wait a minute. Oh, he's RFA. I don't want RFAs. I want just UFAs.
Okay. I think you could switch that up here.
Yeah, I'm trying
free
to.
Agents. Inactive free agents.
I'm just trying to. We'll probably just kind of ignore that then.
Yeah, we'll do that.
Oh, here we go. No, not RFA, Paul. There we go. Update.
UFA.
Okay. So, Patrice Bergeron technically leads the way.
Are you just gonna do an overall? I was saying let's just look at all each position quickly.
Okay. No. Okay.
It's right there. It's one tab higher from where you put the signing status.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have positions right there, and you just put left wing.
Oh, position right here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll start with center, I guess, first.
Okay. Look at the center. Yeah.
This is easier. All right, centers.
Cool.
All right, obviously the great Patrice Bergeron and David Krejci leading the class here. They're both going to sign with Boston. They're going to retire. So, I mean, not much to really else say there. Jonathan Toews looks like he's done. His agency did not include his name. So, the next notable name here is Eric Stahl.
I think he's done too. I mean, he played well for Florida, but I feel like that was his last hurrah.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? I don't think he has much left there.
I don't know why it added Brossois, because I guess I included RFAs for whatever reason, but whatever. But I think, I'm looking at this, the 11. Paul Stastny, I mean, he's a fourth liner at this point. Derek Brassard, he's had injury.
Brassard's career is over.
Thomas Nosek, this is the guy that I could see, going somewhere being a solid fourth liner.
Yeah.
That's it. So, I mean, there's nothing really here.
Even Derek Stepan, he's also a free agent, 33. Solid defensive center, fourth liner. Between those two guys, I think they find a home somewhere where they're needed.
Yeah, I agree. I not much center depth left. All right, so let's go to left wing. Your favorite position?
Hey.
Well, actually, Thomas Tatar is still available.
Yeah, that's surprising. That's
surprising.
very surprising.
A decent little player.
Yeah.
Zach Parise, he actually had a good year with the Islanders. I wouldn't be surprised if he went back to the Islanders. Mm-hmm. Nick Ritchie, I think he kind of is what he is. Danton Heinen, he's just kind of meh. Tyler Mott.
Yeah, he's
good fourth line energy guy.
Yeah. I think he's one of the more skilled fourth liners you can find.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so there is some depth here when it comes to left wingers. I mean, some good guys that you want to round off your lineup, right? And that's if you're not looking to start some of your rookies that you may have drafted or feel that they're ready, or some guys that you're trying to bring up. If you're looking for guys that are depth players, all these guys kind of fit the bill. You know what they're going to bring to the table. You kind of know what they are already. They're looking for a home, and they actually Tatar.
I'm surprised he's not signed.
Listen. You know who should sign him? You're gonna laugh when I say this, but Carolina. Yeah, exactly. See, I told you you're gonna laugh when I say it. But Carolina, you need freaking points. He can help you there. And he's not gonna cost you an arm and a leg. He had a good season last season, 48 points. So you know he can produce still, right? And we
can add another 40-point score.
Hey, round it off.
All right, let's go to right wing. Let's see if there's a little bit more, and we're a little bit later in free agents. Obviously, Patrick Kane. Phil Kessel. I mean, you could sign him, I think, on the cheap. He didn't play at all during the playoff run besides the first round. I wouldn't be surprised if Kessel was done. Even though he's only 35, I wouldn't be surprised. Josh Bailey. I mean, that's a quality, like, fourth-line guy, third-line guy. Colin White did okay for the Panthers. I mean, there's just not much here. You got Zach Cassian, Wayne Simmons, I think, is done. Andre Costa. This is the one guy right here. Now, last list, Costa. Like, I feel bad for him because the concussion issues. He's shown really good talent. Just he's got so much concussion issues. You can't touch him. 10-foot pole.
Yeah. Now, my question to you is, did you not find it kind of funny that in all three lists, even though he's not a center, where was Tarasenko? Got him.
Wait a minute. Where is Tarasenko on this?
That's what I'm looking for. I mean, I typed his name in. He's still out there. He hasn't signed any deals as of yet.
Wait a minute. Was that a fuck up? Did we just not see that? Wait.
No, he's a right wing. He's considered a right wing on this site.
Okay, wait a minute. I'm so lost then. What is going on here?
Yeah, he's not showing up on here at all.
Wait a minute. Why?
Is something happening right now? Is he signing somewhere that we don't know? Because that's the only time that Cap Friendly ever messes us up. It's like right when a trade or a signing happens. It's the only time they ever mess up.
Okay, I'm kind of confused here. What is going on here? I have no idea.
Hold on one second.
Hold on, wait a minute. Let me do this. Let me do forwards, right? Just to kind of. Where the frig is Tarasenko on here?
Is he still on the Rangers roster?
He might be.
Oh my.
Hold on, wait a minute. We'll check it after. I mean, Tarasenko, we've talked about.
Tarasenko, the ghost.
We're gonna have to find that out afterwards. That's crazy. All right, and then defensively, I mean, quality of bottom pairing guys at this point. Strawman's like a seventh guy in a rotation at this point in his career.
I mean, he didn't play. He pretty much didn't play all last season, right?
No, he didn't. He was with the Bruins for when he played, and then they just waived him.
Yeah, Holden is a stay-at-home player. I think he's not gonna really be. He might be one of those guys that if you need a decent defenseman, you go with him.
You got me messed up now. I gotta look up Tarasenko.
Bro, I have him right. I have him on my screen right now. There's no team. There's no team.
Weird.
There's no
that
nothing. There's no
team. That's weird. That must have been a glitch by Cap Friendly.
Yeah, that's what I said. Like, either that or they're hiding him for somebody. But yeah, I mean, not too much left out there as far as free agents go. Nobody's just gonna knock your boots out outside of Tatar. I think Tatar is probably the one guy. Yeah, I think he's the main free agent currently. Like, that's not a restricted free agent, people. Before you're like, listen, unrestricted free agents. Tatar is hands down the best unrestricted free agent at the moment. There is nobody else.
Goaltending. Halak's a free agent. I think he's done. I mean, Aaron Dell, he did okay in a few games. He's more of like an age. He's like a fringe guy at this point. Stalock, 27 games. He's a free agent, 908. Like, that's not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I not much here, man. Not much here.
No, not at all.
Not much here.
Yeah, I mean, outside of that, nobody else really. You have a few names that were like possibilities, but now they're all old and out of contention, honestly.
I mean, Keith Kincaid looked good in the one start he played for the Bruins, but that's about it before they traded him.
I mean, he had a decent run with the Rangers, 2 years ago. You and I both said that was a good pickup by Boston, but obviously with the type of season, that Allmark had, it was just
Yeah, and then Swayman, and they got like other
yeah,
guys like Boosie,
yeah.
and they
He
got
just
too much talent down
yeah.
in the goaltending
So
line.
he ended up back in the same position that he didn't want to be in, which is funny.
So I think we'll wrap it up here.
Yeah.
We'll wrap it up here. Actually, let's wrap it up on this.
Oh yeah, yes, please. Let's address this.
To solve the Edmonton Oilers problem, it's gonna sound crazy. I think they should trade Draisaitl. I think you trade Draisaitl, get a great defender back, maybe another piece like a good center. But if they want to get over the hump, they're gonna have to move a piece or two. Mm-hmm. Now, McDavid making 12.5. I mean, he's justified that cap hit, correct? But if they want to get to that level, right, they're going to have to move somebody, and Draisaitl's going to get you the biggest return, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's where it makes sense for me. I would be thinking about moving Draisaitl. In an ideal world, I could keep Draisaitl and McDavid together, but due to the cap restraints, you could move Draisaitl and get a damn good defenseman, a good quality depth player back up and down the middle.
Or with considering they still have the sleight of hand, right? Nugent Hopkins, $5 million, maybe Hyman as well. Move some guys around, get some decent defensive return. Some guys that are going to last you a little bit longer than a season, right? Yep. And then maybe some of the guys that you drafted, because it isn't like Edmonton drafts horribly, right? It's just I think that they're so far apart from each other from when they get to play together that it almost makes no sense.
Right.
So I think if you get rid of Nugent Hopkins and Hyman, that's $10 million, right? You bring in two quality defensemen, maybe one higher quality at $7 million, another decent quality at $3 million. Yeah, you're looking at a contender now.
I think they're gonna have to make some moves here to make it happen, but that's we went a little further than I expected here, a little longer than I thought. But hey, we had a good time. I hope you had fun doing this with me.
Of course, we do this every day on the phone.
I know.
Let's include the fans, right? Let's include everybody who loves hockey, has an opinion, because sometimes they see things we don't see, right? Sometimes we see some things that they don't see. So it's a good conversation to have with everyone, and we really appreciate everybody who tuned in, commented, said your opinions, asked your questions. Obviously, this video is going to be there. Ask more questions. We always respond. We try to do more stuff. Don't be afraid to suggest anything. A different discussion. We're always open for the next conversation. And, we can definitely cater to everybody if it's possible. So
we're going to try to do this weekly. We got to figure out a schedule here that we can kind of have a consistent day. Like his schedule's flexible. We got to kind of make something work. But I want to say a big thank you for everyone that kind of copped through, ran through here. Yeah. Had a lot of good conversation, a lot of good comments.
Rick Big.
If you haven't already, make sure to hit that subscribe button. And if you want a way to help out the channel monetarily, there's a Patreon that is linked to the channel in the description. We also have an active Discord community as well down below in the description. So make sure to check that out if you want to talk to us on Discord. And like I said, we're going to try to do this weekly. Had a lot of fun doing this. And if you have any questions, comments, or concerns, always feel free to reach us out, whether that be Discord. And I think I have our email attached to our YouTube about me. But I am Captain Paul. That is Fajardo. Hope you enjoyed the episode of The Locker Room, episode 2. And we'll see you in the next one.
Peace.
That was a good show, man.